Welcome to today's episode of How Women Inspire. We are going to spend some time together with the co-founder and CEO of the CenterCap Group. This is the first women-owned boutique middle market investment bank exclusively focusing in real estate, which has been historically all men. So she is a ceiling breaker. Prior to establishing CenterCap, Deb was the co-head of CBRE's Investors Global M&A business. So many of us know CBRE, so I'll be interested to hear how that experience was. And previously a career banker at Lehman, Wachovia, Morgan Stanley. She co-founded the CenterCap in her 30s and has taken no outside money. This is her commitment to retaining control of her destiny, which I hope a lot of you are just getting chills and feeling that in your bones. And this is really about corporate independence. This is about being able to do things she believes in. To date, Deborah has been involved in more than $100 billion of mergers and acquisitions and restructuring transactions. You are such a powerhouse woman in finance. You're courageous. What a gift to get to spend time with you today, Deb.
Well, thanks for having me on. And with that intro, I feel very old.
Well, we could compare notes. I think we are in our power. I'm going to say right now, that's what we are.
I like that.
And the women listening to this can resonate so much with a lot of your story. And I can't wait to dive in because we can all hear your accent. So I am sure there's an immigration story somewhere in that.
Nice.
But let's start with, do you have a song or an album, as it may be, or an artist that sort of speaks to you on the good days or the tough days? What is your song?
Yeah, it's interesting. I will look back to Shania Twain's Come On Over. It's a 1999 album. And I reference that only she's lasted the test of time. But that was a big stage in my life when I was looking to move to the States. And it was a new beginning, taking some risks, starting over. And I think that really was the beginning of the rest of my life, which I just didn't know it at the time. And so it's always stuck with me. I remember the exact time when it came out. I remember the moment when I come to the US, and the rest is kind of history. So I guess I got to lean on that as my album of choice.
Well, I love that it sounds so inviting, but the US isn't always so inviting to immigrants. It seems like the land of opportunity, and it can be, which you have proven, but it's not always that easy. But this is the thing, not being easy to me. If you look at the immigrant journey, and what it means is you have to, by definition, you're courageous, you're a risk taker. You're somebody who knows how to learn and grow and evaluate new opportunities, new markets, new environments. It is a qualifier in so many ways for someone having the kind of career and success that you've had. Does that resonate with you for your own story?
Yeah. And for me, I really do believe it's been the land of opportunity. It's coming from Australia. I grew up on a dairy farm in the middle of nowhere. And I first went to college, and I have come from a big family. It's a dairy farming background. And I think my life has been just a series of being in the right place, right time, taking advantage of opportunity. But, coming over to the US with Morgan Stanley back in the late 90s was pretty much my first big international trip. I'd been over here for training for Morgan Stanley one time before that, but this was a big deal. There was no family vacations when I was a kid, no travel trips to Europe or any of that. So it really was monumental for me coming over to the States. And I remember the first month here that I'd never seen so many different types of milk in a supermarket. And coming up from a dairy farm, I remember that moment because I remember calling my mom and saying, I've never seen so many varieties of milk. I can't believe it. And that seems, it seems quite small, but that was my background as coming to the US to focus on. It seems insignificant to me now, but for someone who'd never really drank milk out of a carton a whole lot growing up, then that was a pretty big moment to remember the continuation of my career and how I got here and why I've stayed.
Well, I think that's pretty fascinating. You think about it, it's sort of how business and commerce can transform dairy into 1,000 different variations. I get it. I understand that. What a powerful experience. So how did you actually transition into investment banking, which is historically not the warmest environment, not super great for women in those days in the 90s, right? And what was your experience as a woman in that space?
Yeah, well, coming over here, I come over with Morgan Stanley in the power group of all spaces where you comment on lack of females in real estate. Well, in utilities at the time, there weren't any. So it was definitely a different background to coming into the industry. And if I had have known a lot about banking and if I had have known a lot about the utility industry, I might have focused on it more. But I didn't know, and I didn't know a whole lot. I went to law school and I thought I was going to be a tax attorney. I kind of fell into banking in getting into it. They'd only selected a couple in Australia in my year. And then coming over to here, it was a consequence. It was not a deliberate choice, as opposed to this is just how my career panned out. And now I've gotten to where I am. I look back and say, wow, would I have done all that if I had have known what I know now? Maybe not. I don't know. I guess ignorance truly is bliss is the reason why that phrase came about.
Well, I'm just gonna say there's no ignorance about you because literally, I mean, who starts the kind of firm you've started at CenterCap without outside money? How did you even begin to do that? Did you just save up a ton of money or did you just start super tiny? What was
we
the
we
trajectory?
started super tiny. I mean, we had, and again, it's a consequence of just being brazen
Yeah,
and just thinking, how hard could this be? It is the most statement for anybody who knows me well. It is my line. I'm like, how hard could this be? A new opportunity, a new group, a new product. How hard could this possibly be? Surely, if other people can figure this out, I can figure it out. And that's pretty much the life of
I
how
love that.
CenterCap started. One foot in front of the other and with a mindset of how hard could this possibly be. I'm not the first person that's done this, but we worked really, really hard. We wore a lot of different hats. We took out our own garbage, did our own numbers. And during the day, we were talking to CEOs about how to build their business. And we had to wear those number of hats along with many entrepreneurs who've been in the same position where the only person you can trust is yourself. And if you want something to happen, you got to make it happen. It's not going to happen by itself. And you just got to put in the time and the effort, one foot in front of the other. And tomorrow's got to be better than today because it can't be worse.
Excellent. I love that. Why did you pick real estate as the sector? Because you could have picked a lot of different, assets.
Yeah. Well, I come up in banking and I was a utilities banker. And
Uh-huh.
I'd actually moved to a career because I didn't want to be pigeonholed into an industry, which we find very funny given
Sure.
what I do. But I moved over to a career to do healthcare banking, to move out of utilities, do something new.
Thank
Well,
goodness you
that
weren't in mortgage banking.
Yeah, it was exactly,
Uh,
exactly. Then when I got to Wachovia, it just happened to be 2005, which was the year of the REIT market in the
yeah.
public markets. And so I worked on one healthcare deal, fell into real estate. My first deal was the Gables go private, and the rest is history. I've been in real estate ever since. I didn't know anything about real estate when I got to Wachovia. I never put it down as a choice of industry I had any interest in. But that's the opportunity. It presented itself. I took advantage of it and I've stuck in it ever since. And now I'm nearly 20 years into the space. So it's ironic that for a girl who said, I don't want to be in utilities and I need to move, so I'm not pigeonholed, that I've been in the same industry for 20
Yeah.
years now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
When you're making your own rules and you're running it and that is such a different environment than being pigeonholed by someone else. I don't know. To me,
yeah,
that's
you're
massively
right.
different.
You're right. But I would also say that the younger versions of myself, I'm glad I went through what I did. And I wouldn't tell myself to take it any easier than I did because otherwise I wouldn't be who I am. But at the same time, I probably stressed about things that I didn't need to stress about. And in retrospect, I probably should have enjoyed it more. But every day I was trying to get to the next step and hit the
Sure.
next hurdle and meet the next expectation. And when you take that approach, you wake up and now I am where I am. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I didn't need to quite work as hard as I thought I did to get
Oh
here.
God. I literally this morning woke up thinking the exact same thing. And in some ways, and I'm still doing it. I thought
I'm
I
still
learned
doing
some
it.
lessons in my 40s and now I'm like right back in it. But the
Same
passion
thing.
and there's something that's addictive about jumping over hurdles and
It is.
really learning and growing and achieving. It's a beautiful experience. I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm not asking for a seat at the table. My friends, this is the first generation of us. We have a huge opportunity. We have power and influence and wealth. And we can start building the tables where we get the prime seats. Today, we want to invite you to join us as investors in venture. I know no one's asked you to do it before. It might be something that seems scary or foreign, but I promise you it's not that different than investing in a mutual fund where your retirement funds are. I want you to lean in and just learn a little bit more. How about making a commitment that in the next 12 months, you can give yourself 12 months to figure it out and to take a step? I want to invite you to be part of the new table of power and influence and wealth. You're invited. I want to sit at the table with you because we're going to make big change. We're going to make the world we've been dreaming of. You were the first woman-owned boutique middle market investment bank focusing on real estate. So walk us back in time when you started. Like, what was it like being the woman that was, I can only imagine how many people looked at you like, she's going to get eaten alive, that little Debbie.
It's, in part, I think we were brazen is that when we were at CB, we were the, youngest woman on the senior leadership team there globally. And I was given a huge amount of responsibility and faith and trust by the CEO and the senior leadership team to bring me on in that role. I was young and I'd already had, I don't know, 1 or 2 kids in tow by then too, as well. And so I never really was put in a position where I had to question why I was there and whether my capabilities were never put in question. And I've been fortunate throughout my career that has been the case. And because of that, I've never apologized for my forthrightness or my desire to want to reach the top or to be the best at what I want to be or to think that I can be the best. It just hasn't been questioned. And so I've never had to be apologetic about it. And so when we started CCG, it was the same mindset. It was, we're doing this and one deal at a time, one step at a time. And again, completely unapologetic for what we were doing. And I think we've only realized in retrospect what we achieved in even setting out on that path. As a founder, as a co-founder with children and being young and leaving a big ticket career at a, bulge bracket bank to do that. We didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about that. It's because we were never apologizing for what we were doing. And I think when you take that brazen attitude, it was met and embraced, I think, by an industry that really hadn't seen a whole lot of that.
Very interesting. I just can't imagine sort of how do you think about those shifts and changes of having kids and building this firm? Can you talk a little bit, talk about those moments when you had to do that real shift or pivot?
Again, I had my first child pretty young for a woman in investment banking, very young, actually.
And how old were you, Deb?
30. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I had my first child at 25. That was really...
30. I was actually at Morgan Stanley, which at the time is very young for someone to be thinking.
Oh, you're in the middle of the climbing. Yeah.
I mean, it was, but I'll tell you, I found my group to be very supportive.
Okay.
And I think people view that differently now, is that people could view that type of support as, to me, the way they supported me. I embraced it for what they offered. And I didn't question it. I didn't second guess it. The support they offered, I accepted it and I ran with it. I used it to the best of my abilities and just accepted it at face value. And I believe that I was very lucky in the world of banking, no question, to have the support that I did in the group that I did with the people that I did. And again, I think in part it was because I just assumed they were going to embrace it. It was like,
I love that.
I'm doing this.
How hard can it be? I love your mantra, Deb. Like, how hard can it be to have a baby while I'm doing this anyway? Like, come on.
That's exactly how it was. Exactly how it was. It was like, this is what I'm doing. So the world's just going to have to adjust. And that was it. And I did the same. I moved to Wachovia, made the same choices again. And even starting up the firm, none of it was easy. But I just didn't question that this is the choices that I'm doing. And so I will figure it out.
Yeah.
I will figure all of this out. So, with the host in tow of children and starting CCG, it was definitely that mindset And I don't know the mindset of others, but I know what mine was and what I was prepared to do, that I committed
I
to this
love that.
path. And
Yeah.
the point you had said earlier that drives you was very similar. So it resonates with me too, is that I get up every day looking forward to the challenge and the something that I'm going to accomplish today, and being driven by goals and accomplishment is very rewarding and what gets me out of bed every day, because I know today has got more challenges and I'm just excited to understand what they are, because I will figure it out once I get there.
And for everybody who's listening, I know you're feeling what I'm feeling, which is like, God, attitude and perspective is everything. There's so many gems of how you've approached things where it's going to be so fun to learn and have new challenges today. And how hard can it be? I can figure this out. That confidence in yourself. And we all know this, but really getting into the front of your brain, like so often you get into a room and you're like, how did he get here? Like he is clueless. And in so many cases, like I've been in the boardroom with people who are the most powerful people in the world. Honestly, not that many of them impress me too much. I mean, it's just
Yes.
like, you know what? That wasn't so hard. Like I can hang with most of these people. And that sense of like confidence that you exude is really amazing. What do you think? What would your advice be for other women that are really breaking into this kind of an environment? Like, what do you think are the challenges that still exist
Yeah.
that you want to highlight and help people think through?
I think people sometimes overthink these decisions, particularly when you're starting out in a career. And I think men and women do approach decisions, material decisions, and very differently. And I think that if you want to move into this as a female, into investment banking, to not overthink it, just go for it. Just go for it. What's the worst thing can happen? It doesn't work out. What's the worst thing can happen, right? And then you can switch gears. Life is full of opportunity. And it's just a question of finding the right opportunity that fits for you. Everyone is excellent at something. It's finding out what that is that makes you happy. And I think, going back where I started, it's, I spent this time thinking I didn't want to get pigeonholed into utilities. And ultimately, it led to the right career for me and making some moves throughout. But that, in retrospect, I don't know if that was a smart decision to make. I mean, over focusing on being the power industry, right? I mean, in my former self, just keep putting one foot in the other, take advantage of opportunities when they present. And I find for college girls particularly, is that trying to think you need to find the perfect job or the perfect career path, or worrying about whether you're going to make a mistake or get it wrong. I mean, it's like, who cares? All right, just go for it. The worst thing will happen is it doesn't work out. You made a wrong call. It is what it is, and move on and do something else. And you always have that ability. And there are so many brilliant, smart, intelligent females out there that don't go with that mindset. And many of the successful women I know do think like that. It's like, just go for it. What's the worst thing can happen is,
Yeah.
make a bet on
Yeah, what's the
yourself.
worst that can
Be
happen?
confident.
Like, what if
Of
you make a
course.
mistake? Big deal. We do it anyway. Even if you think you're 100% prepared, shit happens.
Exactly. And sometimes you may say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. Move on.
Yeah.
Move on, right? Just
Get
move
over it.
past it. Exactly. Just get over it. Don't spend a nanosecond thinking about it. Life
I
will
love
go
that.
on. There is nothing in this moment of time that is going to crucify your career forever. There's
Deb,
nothing.
Deb, what is it that most inspires you?
I think to be better tomorrow than today, and to do more tomorrow than today, and constantly continue to look for opportunities that I can take advantage of that is good for our business and helps us to continue to grow. The thought of tomorrow being the same as today with nothing to look forward to but sameness, it
Kill
kind of
me. Yeah.
yes, it
That's the
terrifies
worst
me.
thing that could happen. Yeah.
That is the worst thing that can
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And I think every day, if I've got an issue, is I'm always taking on something extra with the whole how hard can it be? But I'm always taking on more and more and more. And just, when I think I've got too much on my plate, I then take on something else. So now I need to constantly evaluate how I'm allocating my own time, because I have a lot of balls up in the air and I have a lot of objectives and goals, and making sure that I can execute those myself to my own capabilities is something I stress about. If there's something to stress about, that's it.
Well, this has been such a fun conversation. We're coming up on time. How can people find you? LinkedIn, like what's the best way for people to find you?
We have a website, centercapgroup.com, but I'm also on LinkedIn. It's easy. I'm very easy to find, Deborah Smith CenterCap, or we have our firm, CenterCap, is on LinkedIn as well. Either one of those, happy to shoot me a message. I actually think I'm pretty responsive, so that if anyone has a question or wants to reach out, feel free to do so.
Which is kind of amazing. You sound like the busiest woman on the planet. And here you are, you're like, and I'll follow up immediately. That's awesome. Well, Dawn, I love your energy. You're a woman after my own heart. This has been so fun to hear your journey, but more than anything, the way you approach it, which has been just so heartening. So thank you for that. What a
Well,
gift.
right back at you. I think
Yeah.
we're two peas in a pod. So
I
right
think
back
that's
at you.
probably right. Yeah. Tomorrow
Thanks for
better
having me
not
on.
be the same. That's the worst thing that can happen.
Thanks
All
for
right.
having me on.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.